Hello and welcome back to Media Queries Inside Out. In this lesson, we're going to discuss the basics of what media queries are and how they're used. At its core, a media query is simply an HTML and CSS extension that allows you to limit the scope of your styles. Before 2010, media queries were mostly used to provide printer-friendly versions of websites by specifying a completely separate style sheet that only affected the printed page. Then, in May of 2010, a man by the name of Ethan Marcotte wrote an essay that got everyone in the web design community excited. The essay was entitled Responsive Web Design, and in this article, Marcotte urged designers to embrace the flexible, ever-changing nature of the internet. Furthermore, he prescribed a way to create responsive designs that adapt to the browser using these media queries. Well, 4 years have passed since Marcotte's article was published, and now a significant percentage of websites are using these responsive methods to adapt to the needs of their users. And a great deal of these responsive methods use media queries. So in this course, we're going to take a close look at what a media query is and take a look at some of the ins and outs of how to use media queries. And maybe we'll even take a look at a few features that you might not have heard of yet. So if we jump over to the W3C website at w3.org, we can take a look at the W3C recommendation for media queries. Now these media queries have been around since CSS2, but now in CSS3 they're becoming more and more flexible. And many of the aspects of the CSS2 media queries are being deprecated, and we'll talk more about some of those later on. But for now, if we go to the W3 website, we can scroll through and see more information about what these media queries are, how they work, and we can see a detailed list of all the different media features and different ways that we can use these media queries. So this website will be your go-to guide if you really want a comprehensive look at everything that's included in the W3 specification. But to really illustrate what a media query can do for you, especially in responsive design, let's take a look at media queries in action. So if we go to the Tuts Plus website, we can first of all see one of the oldest uses of media queries in existence, and that is, like I mentioned before, the ability to specify a whole separate set of styles for a printer-friendly version of your website. So if we just come to this page, and in Chrome we can just right-click and then click on Print, when we see our print preview, you can see that the site looks different. Now this doesn't happen by default. The colors are gone, the main menu is not showing up here, so this site or this version of the site is styled differently, and that can be done using media queries. We can specify that we want certain styles to take effect only for the printer-friendly version of our website. So we can scroll through this page and just see a more simplified version of the site. And again, that's one of the oldest uses of media queries. But this site also uses media queries to make the site itself responsive, to make the site adapt to the needs of the user and to the size of the browser. So if we take a look at the site as is, we can see a detailed menu up at the top, a nice little navigation with drop-down items. We can scroll down and see a lot of content here, and it looks nice. Down here at the bottom, we have these two columns, but let's take a look at what happens to these two columns if we resize the site. Once we get to a certain point, the content kind of shifts around, and before we even get to that point, you'll see that the images are resizing automatically. And again, once we hit a certain break point, those two columns break down into one column. And so we have these three items stacked on top of each other, and as we continue to get smaller, we can see that those items continue to resize. The thumbnails resize, and the text fills in the rest of the space. And if we go back up to the top, you can see that the menu now seems to be gone. And if we click on this icon here, we can see our menu expands out from the side. So this site is using this idea of media queries and responsive web design to create a design that is flexible, that changes with the needs of the browser. And as we move through this course, we're going to take a look at how we can use media queries to achieve things like we've seen here, as well as some other things that you might not have thought of before. So let's get started in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you then.